Good evening and welcome to the December 13th, 2021 Board of Education meeting for the Cedar Rapids Community School District. The meeting is now called to order. Thank you to all of you who are here tonight. We will hear all public comments that have been requested via green sheets from the front table by the door. Public comment is clearly marked as addressing the board on the agenda and will begin after the superintendent and board reports. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that the agenda of Monday, December the 13th, 2021 Board of Education meeting be approved as set forth, and that each item is considered ready for discussion and/or action.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Black. Aye. Director Roundtree.
Aye.
Director Borcherding. Aye. Director Newman. Aye. Director Merschbach.
Aye.
Director Humbles.
Aye.
President Tominski.
Tonight we have 3 public hearings: Kennedy High School roof improvements, Taft Middle School roof improvements, and issuance of a not to exceed $25 million school infrastructure sales services use tax revenue refunding bonds. Board Secretary Day, have we received any written correspondence related to any of the public hearings on tonight's agenda?
We have not received written correspondence.
Do we have anyone who has pre-registered to address the board this evening regarding any of the published hearings?
Yes, we do have some registered speakers this evening.
Will you be calling those?
Yes. Those who have registered to speak for the public hearings that are on our board agenda tonight is outlined by the board president regarding the roof improvements and the resolution. If you would please step to the podium when I call your name and indicate which public hearing you are addressing for the record. Our first speaker is Lawrence Winklowski.
Yeah, Lawrence Winklowski, 4234 Morel Road. I remember back August 10th it was last year, big storm came through the derecho, and I thought it could have swore it took off the roof of Kennedy High School. We redid the school, the inside, so I have to believe that the roof was fixed. But then I look at the agenda here, and as you could tell from the presentation that happened before I got up here, oh wait, there wasn't one again, we're almost $300,000 for a roof at Kennedy High School. Insurance didn't cover this. Why are we doing it now? You know, there's a lack of information as to what is happening here. You know, the school board continues to do this, no presentation, just bearing something in the consent agenda to spend $300,000 for a new roof that I think the majority of the community thinks was replaced last year. And if I look at the stuff that they want to do for the additional charges, these are things that should have been done correctly when it was first done. So I don't know exactly what happened. And then, you know, so once again, I'm disappointed in the school board for the way they conduct business. But I'm also disappointed in the school district. I look at the agenda here, or the public notice. I'm supposed to go to a private company during their business hours to see any sort of documents about this. We don't have a internet anymore. We can't put these things as public documents so people can see them. We should have to go, I don't even know if this place is in the school district or, I mean, why not just put it in the rotunda of the Capitol building? and that to go see this stuff. And since the school board continues to operate this, I'm disappointed that the school district doesn't take the initiative of having somebody come up here and make the presentation without a particular invitation. There is no reason for that. So hopefully someone on the school board will ask some questions about this particular item and explain to us what's going on. But as far as I'm concerned, I did not see a big umbrella over Kennedy High School for the last year. And that, so I was under the impression it was all fixed and that. So what's happening and what can we do to change this process so that, you know, people are informed? So people, you know, I don't have to be calling people. You know, I'm trying to change the process to make things more efficient for everybody. Because in one sense, I won't be here in a couple of years, so it doesn't matter. So, thank you very much.
The next speaker regarding a public hearing is Jessica Lafayette. I see that your topic is masks. I'm guessing you want to speak during the other portion of our agenda. Jessica? Jessica here. Jessica, are you wanting to speak about masks or public hearing? Are you wanting to speak about the public hearing or about a mask?
In regards to masks.
Okay, I will have you come back then. This is just for public hearings at this moment, related to the roof improvements at Kennedy and Taft and the resolution.
Okay, so you're gonna take public comment later?
I sure will.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. The next speaker who indicated public hearing is Rod Sadler. Okay, very good, thank you. And then Janelle Gents? Okay, very good, okay. All right, that concludes our presenters then for the public hearing.
Okay. Our public hearings are now officially closed, and we will move on to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Bush, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you very much. So, good evening and welcome to December. I just said to a couple folks earlier today, I cannot believe we're in double-digit December already. That month went by very quickly, as many of them are going by quickly right now. And so just a few things to update you on. Want to welcome everybody and open invitation. This has gone out in several different forms. But to our West Willow, finally we can have a ribbon cutting coming next Tuesday, December 21st from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Thank you for the patience on this, as we have had manufacturing delays on several different, well, the playground equipment that you see in front of you, that got delayed, cafeteria tables were delayed, but now we have a furnished building, we have playgrounds ready to go, and so we are very excited to have our official ribbon cutting next December 21st, next Tuesday. So all public is welcome to that and to come see our new elementary school. So exciting times. Next, just a huge shout out to so many great activities and things going on for students. Of course, we had our fall sports honors, and that is for MVC all conference and our all district honorees. Band, honor band honorees. Congratulations to our all state musicians. And then you can see our robotics team has been busy underway. That's a student from Metro, and also from Metro, they have their annual Thanksgiving celebration. And then our mock trial team did very, very well. So lots of things happening in our secondary arenas with activities, and then also in our elementary schools, certainly lots of engagement. And all of this happens because of amazing adults, both within the district and outside of the district, and parents supporting these efforts. So congratulations to all of our students in those great activities. Lots to celebrate going on. And then finally, This is the season of giving and receiving, and we are very grateful for the food pantries that are offered throughout our district. Our high schools, several of our middle schools, and even some of our elementaries host donation centers. If you have questions about getting access to those or even donating, contact your school, and they'll be happy to connect you to donation centers. And then also efforts like Coats for Kids, and we partner with our local media station on that. And so just very, very grateful for the giving hearts across our community and lifting up our families together. So sincerest gratitude for our community and all those efforts. And those will continue, not just in this season, but certainly beyond. So thank you, community members, for all that you do. And thank you, board. That's all I have for you tonight.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent. Are there any board reports?
President Tominski, I have a legislative report.
Okay, go ahead.
So the 2022 Iowa legislative session will be starting in January. And in preparation for the legislative session, there are several state education associated groups who determine their education priorities for this legislative session. So recently, the Iowa Association of School Boards came up with 5 priorities, one of them being the dropout program, fully funding the dropout program, addressing mental health, teacher recruitment and licensure to help alleviate the teacher and staff shortage, school funding, and supplemental state aid. There's another group that we participate in called the Urban Education Network. This group consists of the larger schools in the state. They came up with their priorities, which are very similar to the Iowa Association of School Board. The first one is to invest, what they're calling invest in Iowa's future, and what that entails is adequate funding for public schools in the state of Iowa. They are asking for a supplemental state aid of 5%. So we will be communicating that to our legislators. The second priority for the UEN is student opportunity equity. This would involve closing the achievement gap that we are seeing after the pandemic and during the pandemic. It would include additional preschool funding. The third item from the UEN is staff shortage. Again, we are all feeling the pinch in terms of licensed staff and certified staff and our paraprofessionals, our bus drivers. It's very difficult to compete with the private sector, and we're experiencing that staff shortage. The fourth one is mental health. The pandemic has really amplified mental health concerns that we've had. And the last one is district authority, which really entails local control. Just the idea that the people closest to the community are best able to make the decisions for the public schools. So we'll be talking with our area legislators this Wednesday at 5 o'clock about those priorities. It will be a public work session, meaning the public will be able to view our conversations with the legislators, but that will be this Wednesday, 5 o'clock via Zoom. My last item is just a reminder to everyone on the board that the Iowa Association of School Board Day on the Hill is coming up on February 1st. And if you would like to attend, please see Laurel and she can make those arrangements for you. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Vice President Garlock. Are there any other board reports? I do want to encourage the public to attend Wednesday's event. It's a great opportunity for us to interact with our legislators, talk about the issues that I know are so important to so many of us. Moving on to addressing the board on our agenda, communications, delegations, and petitions. Board Secretary Day, do we have any speakers registered to address the board this evening? Yes, we do. Before we hear from those who have requested to address the board, I'd like to remind you to please state your name and address for the record when called. You'll be given up to 5 minutes for your remarks. Board Secretary Day will serve as your timer and inform you when your time is up. In order to abide by the open meetings laws, I'd like to remind our speakers that there will be no dialogue between board members and the public during this time, except to clarify the nature of questions or comments from the individuals speaking. We have received all requests and will listen to them in the order in which they were received. We ask that the audience refrain from using inappropriate language or outbursts as a matter of respect for all in attendance. Laura, can you please call our first speaker?
Our first speaker this evening is Craig Seeley, Jr. His topic is ideologies, agendas, sources, and teaching methods.
I wanted to, my name's, she just gave my name. I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I've been threatened, so I don't like to give my address. It's my privilege to speak to this honorable school board and all of its members. I wanted to talk about masks, but this idea of officer-friendly or whatever you want to call it, whatever it's titled, and the disproportionate arrest of dark brown people in this community, in the school districts, it is a dilemma because of equal protection under the law. But when you're arrested and it goes to the Lynn County Attorney, they do a lot of research on your background, trying to figure out why you do what you do. Well, one thing we got to do is make people in general believe that it isn't right to gain a lifestyle by doing things that are criminal. We have to teach that, because where are all these lying, cheating, corrupt people coming from that end up in the highest roles in our government that are trying to destroy this country? One thing that would really help, and I mentioned it before, but I think we're going to actually have to do it with monies from somewhere, get every child in this community, get them to invest, create a portfolio for them, and if we start that young, they can retire when they're 40 and they don't even have to worry because their portfolio is so big. It's called the miracle of compound interest. Maybe that's one place we could really use our money to help people no matter what their economic conditions are. Now I'm going to try to talk about masks in 3 minutes. Pretend you have a normal piece of paper, 11 by 8.5. And you find the center, and you draw a circle that has a diameter of 7 inches, radius of 3.5 inches. Of course, if you're using a compass, you'll have a little pinhole right in the middle of your paper. Well, find a COVID virus and put it in that pinhole. This is a comparison of sizes. If that COVID virus had eyes, the pinhole would look like that 7-inch diameter circle that you just got through drawing. The COVID virus would have no problems getting through that hole. Well, how many pinholes are in our mask? If there was no microscopic holes, no pinholes in our mask, we couldn't breathe. So how many viruses are going through the front of that mask to the inside of that mask? If you're asymptomatic, even if you have all your shots, you could be breathing out COVID viruses on the inside of your mask, and because of the water vapor in your breath, the inside of the mask could get wet, causing the COVID virus to multiply. So you could be ingesting more COVID viruses than you're exhaling. So, by the time you're done for the day and you go home, a 5-year-old, whoever's going to have to wear a mask, and the child takes off his mask, and his grandmother comes up to him and pinches his cheeks and is so loving of the child and give them a kiss on the cheek, she could end up, because there's COVID viruses all over the child's face, she could end up with getting COVID virus into their nasal passages, into her mouth, et cetera, et cetera. What I would like to see done at every level, pre-K, elementary, middle school, and senior high, I would like to see one teacher and one student, maybe every day, at the end of the day, have a culture taken of their mask, and also cultures taken of the air that they're in, to see what's really going on with the mask. Because I don't care what the CDC says, because they're not here taking those cultures. We need to do
Excuse
that.
me, Mr. Seeley, your time
Thank
is
you
up.
for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Next on the list is Lawrence Winklowski. Lawrence did not list a topic.
Yeah, Lawrence Winklowski. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to welcome council or board member Roundtree and congratulate her last week, because I only had 5 minutes to talk, and trust me, I like to use that 5 minutes. They wouldn't even give me 5 minutes at Thanksgiving to talk. It's terrible, my family is. But I've been coming to these board meetings definitely before, with the exception of Laurel, everyone else up there. And with the exception of pretty much the whole thing with COVID, it all comes down to financing. A lot of it does, the issues that we experience. And some of the issues are pushed on the school district because financing within our government is being taken away from other resources and being the resources are being pushed on the school districts, like mental health and that. And everyone is nice about this, and we complain and that. But, at some point, people have to just say enough is enough. Money keeps going to other places, tax breaks for businesses, and we encourage businesses to develop in our community and that, but we're not helping the people who need it. We are not helping the people who suffer from mental illness and other family issues and that. I look at mental illness that, for every year you're depressed, it may take 2 or 3 years for you to recover from it. So we're not addressing it at the root cause or quick enough. So I think it's time that the community and maybe even the teachers to go down to Des Moines and maybe a few days have a sit-in in the rotunda and just lock it down. Maybe the teachers should actually break the law and go on strike and that, because it's not so much the teacher, partly it's the teachers don't get paid enough, but it's all this other costs that are being incurred and pressures being put on them that makes their pay less valuable than what it's getting. And I'm not a union person by any means, but something's got to be done. And, one reason why they get paid so much in Chicago, in the Chicago area, is because they're allowed to strike. And that they, granted the cost of living is higher, but, they go on strike and they keep getting raises that are above the cost of living. And I don't know how this school district's going to be able to afford school raises this year that are at the cost of living, since the cost of living is so higher. So the people need to take an action, and the teachers, and it's going to have to be, unfortunately, an unfavorable action, I think, to get anything done. And I really hope people I really encourage people to do this and that because I really want to see people getting the resources they need for the help they need now. And so, because, if a parent has mental illness, that affects the whole family. And that, so that's all I have to say. And that, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Janelle, is it Gents? Janelle Gents, Janelle Gents. Okay, all right, very good. All right, our next speaker then is Rod Sadler.
That should have been in reverse order.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, the way I handed it to you should have been the order.
It got messed up when I was going through checking for public hearing. I apologize. Did you want to?
Yeah, that's the case.
Some had indicated the public hearing, so that's why those three got pulled out, because they put public hearing, so we just need to know who's.
So it should be Kurt then.
That would be Kurt Hancock.
Okay, thank you, yes.
Thank you.
Kurt Hancock from Mount Vernon, Iowa. And what I want to talk about today is the pandemic of transmission and COVID data. I don't want to talk about any opinions or anything. I just want to talk about data. I think that I was here at the last meeting, and I think that you mentioned the pandemic of transmission and that we have to get over that before we can unmask the children. So what is the pandemic of transmission? One way to define it is what people like to use, and legitimately is CDC data. This is a chart of CDC data. Anyone can find it. Just Google CDC COVID data tracker, and you'll find it. You go down on the left, you'll find demographics by age group. You click in, and you look at cases. And what this is from the very beginning of the pandemic, April of 2020, every month up to 1 week ago. The y-axis is cases per 100,000 of population. In other words, it's the number of cases of COVID in the United States. And it's broken down by age group, a simple line graph. Now we're, of course, in this age of the graph, and these top groups here, this top one, 5 to 11, 12 to 15, 16 to 17, these are the school-age kids, and they are at the top of the cases. So there's no doubt there is a pandemic of cases, all right, for school-age children here in the United States. But what does that mean? I ask people, so how many are children seriously sick? Are they dying? No one seems to want to talk about that. Okay, so we're not going to talk opinions or even what they say. We're going to simply go down and we'll click the CDC data deaths. They track the same data, and it's over here, and it's the deaths by COVID, the entire pandemic by age group. We're in this area, and there's a spike up here, and this is 75 plus. We don't have any 75-year-old students. We probably don't have any 75-year-old staff members. Now we go on down, that's 65 to 74, then it's 50 to 64, 30 to 39. Okay, just to jump ahead, the school age groups, school age kids. Where are they? They are here on the x-axis. They are hugging the x-axis. They don't even move off the x-axis on this chart. And this is CDC data, it's not my opinion. They have hugged the deaths of school-age kids, COVID, all the way back from the beginning. They've been on the x-axis. They are not getting seriously sick and dying from COVID. This is not my opinion. This is the CDC data. The question is, why don't you say this? You don't tell people that. You seriously, the media also, they give us this information. They give us the pandemic of transmission, and that is true. You are not lying, but by omission, you don't give the data of how serious is it for children. It is not serious for children. Now, that's data. That's not my opinion. One more piece of data I'd like to bring up is that the Bible is very clear that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You represent an institution of knowledge, and this institution of knowledge has rejected the Lord. They actively keep the Lord out of public schools. You don't have wisdom. This is my conclusion now. You don't have wisdom. And maybe that could explain why you only show this chart and you don't tell the whole story to people. This is fearful for public and parents. They are afraid, And people I've talked to, they don't know that the children are not dying from COVID. One more thing, respectfully, really, you are not the enemy. We are commanded to love you, and we do. You are not the enemy, but I seriously, seriously think you work for the enemy. The public school system is corrupt. It is not right. And it seems like it's being overtaken by evil. I pray you reach out for the Lord for wisdom and guidance. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dan McGrail. Dan is here to talk about police in the schools.
Dan McGrail, 3324 Winnick Road, Cedar Rapids. I'll be brief. Just considering the recent school violence tragedy in Michigan and the recent murder of a school teacher in eastern Iowa, I'd request the school board to reconsider their decision to remove the police from the public schools. Certainly having the police on site would make a big difference compared to having them miles away downtown if such an occurrence, happened in this community. Thanks.
Thank you. Russ, who was next on your list then?
I prefer with me.
Okay,
They should be bar 20.
okay. You can just help me maybe.
Yeah, I'll help you through them.
All right, thank you. This is Russell Hotchkiss. He's here to talk about the mask mandate in vaccine clinics.
As you mentioned, I'm Russell Hotchkiss. I reside at 3341 Chester Road here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 52411. I'm objecting once again, as I in the last two school board meetings and my meeting with Superintendent Bush, to mask mandates and the vaccine clinics on our campuses. You state that you're protecting the children. However, everything you do is contrary to the health and welfare of the children. In fact, I have concluded a picture of Superintendent Bush at the school board conference in Des Moines, mid-November, without a mask, with 250 people in that room. Ms. Borcherding, she was also caught receiving a reward with over 1,500 people in that same room without wearing a mask. Hypocrisy much? My family and I went to Minneapolis, Minnesota to watch the Steelers versus the Vikings on Thursday Night Football in the U.S. Bank Stadium. Capacity, 73,000 people. You know how many people were wearing masks there? 0, except the staff. And I'm sure that they were forced to wear them. I have a video if you'd like to see it. I have provided Superintendent Bush as well as the Board of Education with over 12 studies, the latest one coming from Brown University mid-November 2021, proving that the masks are physically, mentally, and psychologically damaging our children. The masks impede their learning, both verbal, voice inflection, and facial recognition for word enunciation. Your own data from the school board meeting, I did attend the first one, that your decisions are having an adverse effect on the students. You're 10% behind the state average. That's pretty pathetic. Another study showed that children's ability to recognize facial recognition or of others' moods, whether that was sad, angry, or stressed, was greatly diminished, and children were were only able to correctly distinguish the person's facial expressions 18 to 25%. A study was conducted and harmful pathogens were found in the children wearing masks, what Craig was alluding to. Let's see what else is on those masks after 8 hours. It has been proven that the masks lower oxygen intake, increase carbon dioxide, resulting in the following symptoms: counterproductive to learning and has adverse health effects. My son also had all of the below symptoms. Did you know that blocking the children's airway resulting in hypocapnia, carbon dioxide toxicity? The symptoms: drowsiness, mild narcosis, dizziness, confusion, headaches, unconscious, nausea, lack of concentration, dim sight, reducing hearing, nosebleeds, tooth decay, and bleeding gums, shortness of breath, muscular tumors, increased heart rate, and blood pressure. Psychologists have shown that masks increase anxiety and physical stress. It has also been proven to reduce their cardiopulmonary capacity. Children will develop deficiencies with their coping strategies while their brains are still developing. The COVID-19 virus is 1 micron. Craig was alluding that to you as well. The holes in the mask, 80 to 500 microns. You know what that means? It's like trying to stop sand being thrown through a chain link fence. I provided the VAERS summary from December 2020 to November 5th, 2021 of the erroneous number of adverse events that were reported caused by COVID-19 vaccines and included but not limited to 875,000 adverse reactions, myocarditis, pericarditis, strokes, heart attacks, blood clots, 92,000 hospitalizations, 29,000 permanent disabilities, over 3,000 miscarriages, 18,461 deaths, which is now over 19,000. That's more than twice the amount from 1990 of all other vaccines to the present. I even read you Pfizer's brochure about their vaccine. It states that they have shown to prevent COVID-19. That's not true. Everyone I've ever known that got the jab all got COVID. So why are we worried about COVID-19 when it shows that the children 0 to 18 have a 99.997% recovery rate from it? The duration of the protection against COVID-19 is currently unknown. The efficacy, as I told you the last time, 52% for Pfizer for their booster shots, 42% for Moderna, 13% for J&J. They don't even last 3 months. There are 24 adverse events listed in the pamphlet. Not once do they mention the previously listed adverse events. My son attends Hiawatha Elementary. I could have stopped when I fought for and won his religious freedom and freedom to the autonomy of his own body, but that's not in my nature, nor would I, or my conscience would allow it, especially when I see all those other children suffering when I drop him off and pick him up from school. Why those kids' parents don't fight for their constitutional rights and true safety of health of these children, I cannot answer. Most likely it's fear. Fear their child won't receive an education, which they are entitled to an in-person education, or fear they won't have time to know how to teach their child in homeschooling. However, God saved me for this battle and to fight for those children and to spare them from their parents and from tyranny. With that being said, a bit of scripture from the 17th chapter of Luke. It would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck and to be thrown into the sea than cause one of those little ones to stumble. It's repeated throughout the Bible. You people need to hear it, and you do not. Judgment will be done in this life or the next, and I hope you are prepared. God is watching and listening and knows and sees all.
Mr. Hotchkiss, your time is up.
Should be Barclay next.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Barclay Warner, is here to speak about the mask mandate and vaccine clinics. Pardon me?
He wants to yield to me.
Oh,
He
sure.
wants to yield his time.
Another 5 minutes, is that what you're looking at?
Yep, and then the next one will probably yield to me too, and the next one will yield to me too.
All right.
Okay? Excuse me? Well, he gets 5 minutes, so he's yielding 5 minutes to me.
Yeah, 3 more speakers, I think that's what you were saying.
Something like that, 3 or 4. So let's explain how this actually works, which from my research, none of you appear to know anything. The school board derives its power from the state, not the federal government. The fact that we, the people, have asked where and how the money is used on numerous occasions is very suspect and upsetting the information that has not been yielded or provided yet. From what I gather, you have received approximately $4,000 per student from the CARES Act with around 17,300 students in Cedar Rapids District. That's about $69.2 million received from the federal government, which is in violation of state law. However, what you have done with that money for masking our children and offering a vaccine clinic, which I have already read some of the adverse events and vaccine causes, especially in children 0 to 18 on school property, is counterintuitive. Noreen, I mentioned to you in our meeting November 22nd, she said she didn't know that why people thought the district was being paid. She said that they were being reimbursed. That's getting paid. What did you have to do to get and keep that money? What are you hiding and where is the transparency? From what I can gather, you are simply pimping our children out for money and not providing anything of health and safety, but rather the opposite. Here's the thing. I'm not going to rehash all the violations because I've already said them to you. But the first one, child abuse and relentless assault on our children. Munchausen syndrome by proxy. The Cleveland Clinic says it's a fictitious disorder imposed on another, is a mental illness in which a person acts as if an individual he or she is caring for has a physical or mental illness when the person is not really sick. The Cleveland Clinic and the Michigan Meadow designate it as child abuse. So placing a mask on a child that is not sick, that's helpful. The CDC had to admit that COVID-19 has no real effect on children 0 to 18. Also, that the virus does not spread from one person to another with natural immunity or one that is asymptomatic. I provided you with a response to the FOIA request admitting it. It's in writing. They have no transmittable cases natural immunity, or asymptomatic. So they're not spreading it like you claim they are. Coercion. It's compelling a party to act in an involuntary manner by use of threats, including force. It involves a set of various types of forceful actions that violate the free will of an individual to induce a desired response. Forcing students to wear a mask or they cannot attend school. Forcing the faculty to wear a mask or they will not get paid or they will lose their employment, which I think is kind of funny. Superintendent Bush stated that the staff is 75% vaccinated. So if your vaccines work, why are we wearing masks? The Department of Education 279.58 states the school dress code policies. It states that the Board of Education may enforce what one cannot wear, but it does not state that you have the authority to dictate what someone can wear. Otherwise, you may be in violation of civil rights laws. Did not obtain informed consent. FDA Code 21 USC 360 BBB-3. It's pretty specific about this. In fact, they wrote a 46-page document informing you how you are to obtain informed consent. If you don't get it, you are assaulting somebody, and it's the equivalent of rape. Which you will still not be done so for the fact that the mask or the vaccine, you still haven't done with the mask or the vaccine clinics. I have witnesses that went there. Not one of them obtained informed consent. Practicing medicine without a license, harming our children while doing so, mentally, physically, and emotionally. I have provided you with dozens of studies, the latest one from Brown University, November 26, 2021. COVID rules are the blame for 23% dive in young children's development. Disturbing studies show scores in 3 key cognitive test culprits between 2018 and 2021 with face mask rules among possible culprits. Iowa Code 147.2 regarding the license required for practice of medicine. You're violating that law as well. 147A.21 has the definition of what it means to practice medicine. The FDA deems a mask is a medical device. In 2008, Dr. Anthony Factitious Fauci co-authored a paper about the Spanish flu epidemic and studying, and he discovered that most of the victims of the Spanish flu did not die from the Spanish flu. They died from bacterial pneumonia caused by wearing masks and vaccinations.
Mr. Hotchkiss, that 5 minutes is up.
Okay?
The next speaker is Jessica Lafayette.
I'll delegate my time to this tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. A study of children's masks in Florida showed dozens of harmful pathogens on the mask, which I alluded to earlier. You violated all 10 of the Nuremberg codes. We, the people, have this property. It's public property. You have brought these vaccines in here that have proven to kill people. I've given you the VAERS report. I've read it to you earlier. It's despicable. It's probably killing as many people as supposedly COVID does. No one handed out the Pfizer's, Moderna, or J&J leaflet with the benefits or adverse events. No one informed them of the VAERS data. No one informed the people that they could opt out of the experiment or reject it. No one showed ID to prove they were parents of the students being vaccinated. If you recall, I placed you on notice November 22nd, 2021. I gave you until November 26th, 2021 to comply. Your time has expired. What that means is your corporate veil has been pierced and you can be held personally liable for your actions. Let's talk about the law. And I remind you, you forced me to learn the law. Iowa Code Chapter 64, Official and Private Bonds. 64.1, bond not required. Bonds shall not be required of the following public officers: the governor, lieutenant governor, members of the General Assembly, judges of the Supreme and District Courts, and District Court judges and associate judges, township trustees, city council members, including city commissioners and aldermen, other than mayors. Notice school board members are not listed, which means you have to be bonded. 64.2, conditions of the bond of public officers. It tells how you post your bond. 64.25, failure to give bond. Action by any officer in any official capacity without giving bond when such bond is required shall constitute grounds for removal from office. Such office shall be considered vacant and shall be filled as provided by law. Once a bond is revoked, you will never be able to be bonded again, therefore barred from holding public office. Iowa Bond Code 64 on oaths and bonds requires a current oath of office and a surety bond. You folks are bonded under this code. Your bonds are faithful performance and honesty bonds. I know. I spoke with your bonding agent, Cassie Daly from the Excel group, who supplied me with your bond information. It's in your packets. Allow me to explain what this means. A public official bond is a type of surety bond that serves as a stationary obligation requiring faithful performance, fidelity, integrity, and of a public official's duties to the public. This bond is one of the oldest forms of written guarantee that requires persons to obtain to qualify for office. In 1792, Congress passed an act that the office of the paymaster shall give a bond in the sum of $20,000 with two sufficient sureties for the faithful discharge of duties. Depending on the statutes of specific jurisdiction, public official bonds may be faithful performance bonds, fidelity bonds, public employee dishonesty bonds, or public employee blanket bonds. Yours is the latter. They're called linebacker public officials and employment practice liability, EPLI, and crime. Allow me to clarify what this all means. You folks are bonded and you are carrying individual liability insurance. So if you are acting in capacity as a public official, if you cause wrong or harm, we the people have a recourse and can hold you accountable and do not have to wait for the next election. 66.1A, removal by the court. Any appointed or elective officer, except such as may be removed by the impeachment, holding any public office in the state in any division or municipality thereof, may be removed from the office by the district court for any of the following reasons. 1, for willful or habitual neglect or refusal to perform the duties of the office. For willful misconduct and maladministration in that office. For corruption, extortion, upon conviction of a felony, which I'll get to. For intoxication or upon conviction of being intoxicated, upon conviction of violating the provisions of Chapter 68, which is impeachment. 66.2, who has jurisdiction? The jurisdiction of the proceeding provided for this chapter shall be as follows. 1, state officers of whose offices are located in the seat of government, the District Court of Polk County, as the state officers whose duties are confined to a district within a state, the District Court of any county within such district. As to county, municipal, or other officers, that's all of you, the District Court of the county in which such officers' duties are to be performed. 66.3, who may file a petition? The petition for removal may be filed by.
Time is up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Next.
Rod Stadler. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. 66.3, who may file a petition? By the Attorney Generals in all cases, as to the state officers by not fewer than 25 electors of that state. As to any other officer, that's you guys, by 5 registered voters of the district, county, or municipality where the duties of the office are to be performed. Do I got 5 people that would like to put a petition in to impeach these people?
Right here. Here.
As to the district officers by the county attorney of any county in the district, as to any county and municipal officers by the county attorney of the county where the duties of the office are to be performed. The people that wrote this magnificent document that created this great country saw that the government of any form was inherently evil and would always be. So they put the power of the individuals to work and set in place safeguards for our protection. We will be using them if you continue down this path. Furthermore, I would like to inform you of 2 federal criminal laws you are violating. Put your ears in and your thinking caps on. 18 U.S.C. 241, conspiracy against rights. If 2 or more persons conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district of the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the Constitution or laws of the United States or because of his having so exercised the same, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. And if death results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or such acts include kidnapping or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse, or attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or attempt to kill, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for the term of years or for life, or both, or may be sentenced to death. 18 U.S.C. 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. Whoever, under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom, willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession of, or district to the deprivation of rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States, or so different punishments, pains, or penalties on account of such person being an alien or by reason of color or race that are prescribed for the punishment of citizens, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And if bodily injury results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include the use, attempted use, or threatened use of dangerous weapon, explosives, or fire, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. And if death results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include kidnapping or attempted to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse, or attempted to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for the term of 10 years or for life or both, or may be sentenced to death. Do you know what that means? That's a heavy sentence, people, if you're convicted. I have written claims against all of your bonds, except you, Miss Roundtree, because you're new. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. And I will personally put them in the hands of every parent in this district. I have all the time and means in the world and have no problem doing just that. Once a claim has been made, your insurance company, EMC, they've already been notified, is now on notice of a pending lawsuit which they will be on the hook for. We will sue in federal court district under Title 42, 1983, civil action for the deprivation of rights under color of law. In both your official and individual capacities, we will seek compensatory and punitive damages with the amounts at minimum of what you are bonded. Do you really believe your insurance company will want to pay the damages in the millions in defense of your actions? If this is madness does not stop, and stop tonight, President, this will move forward. The line was drawn, you crossed it. Either stand down or prepare for the ramifications that would be brought to bear against you. I pierced your corporate veil a few weeks back when I placed you on notice. What do you think I was doing when I was letting all the legislators know what you're doing in this district? I was building a paper trail. As stated above, you will be held criminally and civilly liable for either the laws of the state of Iowa and these United States of America. I personally assure you I am not an attorney, and I am not bound by their procedures and rules, and I am able to do things they are not.
The next speaker is Michelle, is it Nicholas?
The wheels of justice will be brought to bear on you in ways you cannot even imagine. It stops tonight. That being said, I'm requiring a vote, Mr. President, by all members, both bonded and not, on any and all COVID guidelines to cease, as well as removing all mask mandates, and vaccine clinics are removed from Cedar Rapids School District property effective immediately. And in the future. To continue or revoke, nothing in any of this bond is by law, simply words on a paper by a non-governing body. Your acquiescence only perpetuates this madness that cannot be proven to even exist. I have a friend that has filed over 120 FOIA requests for isolated samples of the virus, which no official agency has been able to produce. What does that mean? As stated previously to you, the PCR test cannot distinguish between the common cold, the flu, COVID-19. Where is the flu? They must have lumped all cases in the same bucket for COVID-19. So you are masking our children for no reason, and you are perpetuating fear. The CDC has openly admitted that they have no documented cases of naturally immune or asymptomatic persons that have transmitted COVID-19 in a response to a FOIA November 5th, 2021. What say you, Mr. President?
There'll be no personal comments during this time, sir.
When are you going to take that vote? As soon as we're done? Because I can go on.
The item is not on our agenda, so the board is not able to take action.
Then we'll be taking action starting tonight. Secondly, I propose each and every one of you all vote on the termination of Noreen Bush as current and active superintendent and start a motion to begin a search on a new superintendent for the Cedar Rapids Consolidated School District. The hypocrisy knows no bounds. She was at that conference with no mask on, 250 people, and then she sat in her boardroom with me and my wife and kid with a mask on, virtual signaling like all of you are doing now. It's pathetic. Lastly, Ms. Borcherding, since you are the expert and therefore is overwhelmingly evidence masking children harms them mentally, physically, and emotionally, and they are virtually no terminal risk from COVID-19, I'm asking that you resign effective immediately. Or we will pursue legal action against your bond, your office, and you personally. Once your bond is revoked, once again, you will never be able to hold public office, and we will come after you to pay reparations to each and every child you harmed in this school district. Ms. Numbles, since you were the president of this ill-advised course of action, I'm also asking that you resign as well, or else we will also file against you on your bond and you personally and hold you liable individually and criminally as well. What say you? If you do not comply with our wishes, we will start the process immediately. Once again, I got 5 people that are willing to sign a petition to impeach these people. Jennifer Borcherding has a degree in psychology from DePaul University with an emphasis in child development, but yet stays silent in the most critical time in our history where masking has proven to be physically, mentally, and psychologically devastating to our most vulnerable citizens, our children. She has not read any of the 12 studies provided to her or the board demonstrating the harmfulness of masks on children. She was caught not wearing a mask in the midst of 1,500 people in Des Moines at the school board conference on Wednesday, November 17th and Thursday, November 18th, 2021. Nancy Humble is in charge, and I use the term loosely, of this ill-advised path for the last 2 years. Believes in racism called CRT. Race theory, or critical race theory, AKA SEL, social economic learning. I have several speeches that I love to listen to. One of them is from MLK, Martin Luther King, Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I no more feel guilty about the color of my skin being white, and sure as hell will not have my son subjected to it. No more than you should feel oppressed by the color of your skin. We will be seeking you, Cindy Garlock.
Mr. Hotchkiss, your time is up. Our next speaker is Casey Anderson.
Cindy Garlock, Dexter Merschbrock, Jennifer Newman, David Tominski. You're all put on notice as well. I filed individually on each and every one of you. Eventually we'll get to that CRT and SEL, the 1619 project, and the reeks of David Nicholson and Lynch Davis wanting to do away with the exterior audits. That reeks of corruption. I sat in on their audit committee. I did not like what I heard. They want to bring it internally and get legislation to do it. That will not happen on my watch. You people are corrupt as all get out, and it is absolutely sickening. And you know what's funny? My wife actually asked me, "You sure you want to move to that district?" like I said earlier, I think God sent me here for this. He spared my life so that I can be here and protect all those children that these people are afraid to stand up for. And you people are not. As I mentioned earlier, you're pimping them out. You are not by law able to get those funds. But now you have to follow the CDC guidelines. I've read the rule. I could have read that too. You have to follow the CDC guidelines. They are a private entity and probably the most corrupt entity on the face of the earth. They get their funds from Big Pharma, and they get it from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. If that doesn't smell of corruption, I don't know what does. And the fact you people took that money is disgusting. And now you're holding our kids hostage to keep the money. Because I'm guessing if you aren't 100% compliant, you have to send the money back. What'd you have to do to get the $85 million for the ventilation? Huh? Take that vote tonight, Mr. President. If you don't, we're coming.
Next speaker is Julie Casey.
Julie Casey Marion. I was going to yield my time to Russ, but I kind of missed it. He did a great job. All I want to do is reiterate what he said. We're not going to wait until a child dies. We know the vaccine kills. We know some of the toxic ingredients in a vaccine. We also know children don't need it. And we've seen a lot of errors in them vaccinating kids. Oops, we double dosed. Oops, we gave a booster first, and then we just decided to give a first dose with it. I just had a guy at my house yesterday, 18 years old, leg shaking, fainting, no energy, looked pasty and white, said that's what they did to him here, locally. I want to give you a 1964 U.S. Supreme Court law. And this case is New York Times versus Sullivan. U.S. case law states that debate should be wide open, robust, uninhibited, and may well be vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. We are allowed and encouraged to critique your job. It is our constitutional right to do it. Not your enemy, but you're hurting kids, and I'm not going to stand by while you're doing it just because you got paid. I'm sickened by the fact the CDC comes in and bribes every official that gets in their way and then goes to school boards to undermine parents. You're not listening to parents. These are our children, and you work for us. And I really do pray for you because I think there's morality issues here besides just breaking the law. There's morality issues here. Please tell me that you are moral enough not to take money and harm a child. You know there's so much CDC information right now, and FDA information, and NIH information, and the WHO to tell you that this isn't right for children. It's fake. They keep hem-hawing on all the evidence. They come again. We haven't even gotten a PCR test yet that divides between different viruses, let alone one that even isn't calibrated at the right calibration, which they did it at 45 cycles. It's legally supposed to be under 17. Otherwise, you get false positives on everything. And don't they love cases? And I'm telling you, you had a school bus driver faint. You had a school bus driver pass out from asphyxiation. You're lucky a bunch of kids didn't die that day or get in an accident in the middle of an intersection. Are you letting parents know that a school bus driver passed out? And I don't have a whole lot more to say. I'm just mortified by the fact that this is in our city, that we have people that pocketed. How much money did you actually pocket yourself? I'm really curious because there's not a lot of information on what you have to do with the money. Are you getting kickbacks? Are you getting a vacation? I don't know. I'm just concerned. And I'm concerned that you guys are willing to risk our children for money and for whatever agenda that you believe in. Thank you.
Our final speaker this afternoon is Tanya Johnson. Tanya is here representing CREA. The topic is Teacher Good News.
Yes, I think that's what we need, is some teacher good news. So, I want to say, Tanya Johnson, 3816 Riverside Drive, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. CREA President. I want to say congratulations to our newest National Board certified teachers. We have 2 teachers from Kenwood and 1 teacher from Harding who renewed his certification. Holland Eggert and Brittany Ballard White from Kenwood and John Pauley from Harding. And that definitely deserves a round of applause for them. Thank you to them. If any of you have ever gone through the National Board Certification process, it is a very rigorous process. Most people, it takes them 2 to 3 years to finish. And the night before you find out if you've passed, it is a night of sickness because you're so sick to open this email and find out. And they found out on Friday evening at 12:05 that they all passed. So congratulations to them, and I know we'll be hearing something soon out about all of them. Next, I wanted to say, I saw on the school board agenda that the CROTA wages have been raised, and I want to thank the school board and thank the district for working with CROTA to make that happen. That is awesome. It's exactly what we need. And then, since I have a little bit of time, but nobody to pass my time to, I just wanted to say that as a CREA president and the speaker for teachers in our district, I want to say I super appreciate the passion that we have from some of our families. And I really wish that passion could go towards the legislation and to our legislature of how we can get more funding for our schools. Because we absolutely need more funding for teachers. We need to be able to pay our pairs more. We need to pay all of our workers the opportunity to pay so that we don't have the shortages that we're going to have in the next coming year. So thank you again for all you do, and thank you for letting me share a little bit of good news.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers for this evening.
The public comment portion of our agenda has now ended. We will now move on to our consent agenda.
Just a second, she thinks she has a green sheet in?
I'm sorry, I thought all of his comments were forwarded to Russ. That's what
Can
he
I ask,
indicated.
what's your name?
Okay. Okay, hang on just a minute here, I'm looking.
put hers in before I did.
Kelly, yep, I see you, Kelly.
Is there anybody else that signed up with a green sheet that has not had a chance to speak? So this will be the last one.
Okay. Kelly Stastny, 375 Eastland Drive, Southeast. I'm sure we sound like just over and over the same thing, right? But you as school board members have to know and have to come to the realization that we, our parents, are not giving up. You might think that we eventually will just tuck our heads between our legs and give up the fight, but you are dead wrong. As parents, it is our duty, our responsibility, our mission, and our desire to take care of our children to the best of our ability. As a school board, who obviously has made this political and chose not to put our kids' best interests above all else, you should feel ashamed and know that you have completely failed at your job. How might life have been different for you in elementary, middle, or high school had this been going on? If you had to wear a mask all day long, if you had vaccine talk up in your face all of the time, do you think you would have turned out the same today in that situation? Maybe as an adult you would have developed anxiety or depression, who knows? Maybe you would have not gone on to be the person you strive to be and are sitting right there right now. So many liberties have been taken away from kids through each generation. Your generation had plenty of freedom growing up. Mine had just a little less. And that's not just an option for our kids today with everything going on that is around them. So now you're enforcing one more thing on them as a constraint. You're taking away the human need and ability to just talk, laugh, and breathe normally. You're the cause of the mental health issues that are continuously rising. Yet I sat here and listened to you guys talk about how that needs to be addressed. Duh. Where do you think that's coming from? Open your eyes. You are the cause of this. Can you honestly say that you think masks help prevent COVID? What happened to promoting healthy behaviors? Pretty sure I remember having nutrition classes throughout school when I was a kid. Exercise, eating healthy, using our own natural immune system the way God intended us to. Amen. But yet instead you want to force a mask mandate. Did you know that wearing a mask induces a hypoxic injury? Studies have been done showing that by wearing a mask you are restricting airflow, also breathing in more carbon dioxide. More than that, you are creating stress because your body is having to suck oxygen through something that is obstructing the airway. When you're wearing a mask, you're reducing your ability to oxygenate. You're also increasing your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormones. I don't care if you choose for your body to go through this, but there are so many families that are choosing not to do this. And I don't know about you, but I don't know of anyone that needs more stress right now. Nobody. By pushing masks, pushing vaccines, pushing a political agenda, you are part of the problem. More and more evidence is coming out against the benefits of masks and also the vaccine. Excuse me. More deaths happening from those that receive the vaccine than actually dying from COVID. Yet there is a push for our 5 to 11-year-olds to get this, and it's been available and approved. You are promoting these health clinics to get the vaccine, but not giving out actual information and the side effects of these vaccines at these clinics. You are promoting them by offering $50 gift cards? That's bribery. Over my dead body, will I let the schools or government make that decision for us? Was that part of your job description when you accepted a position on the board? Be an advocate for anything medical related for other families, not your own. School should not be the place to have these. Maybe instead of focusing on mandates and pushing a very obvious totalitarian approach, you can start focusing on ways to better support the teachers and staff. You can better support educating our kids and focus what is actually being taught in the school systems. Stop losing sight of what matters. What you may not realize is there are more and more lions than sheep surfacing, and our voices and concerns and truths will not stop. You need to really think long and hard and decide who you as a person are and make the right choice. It is not too late, because our children are our future, and currently you are a huge part of how that future looks for them. I would personally not want what y'all have done to our kids to be on my conscience. So I just ask, please have a backbone and think about our kids more than yourself and step up and put an end to this. Please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone that came out to address the board tonight. Public comment has ended. We will now- The public comment section is over, sir.
You are the president, you can alter the
Take
agenda.
a vote.
Take 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 the
Take
vote.
a vote.
Take
Take
a
a
vote.
vote.
The
Take
public-
a vote.
Take the
Take
vote.
a vote. We will not back down.
The public comment section is over. It is time for us to conduct our board
agenda.
business.
Take a vote.
Take the vote.
Take a vote.
Drop the mask and take
This board will take a recess while the disruption is removed, and the board can continue on with its
Take a recess
business.
and discuss it and take a vote.
Take the vote.
We will not go
We're in
away.
recess.
We're not going away.
We know our constitutional rights. We will not go away.
This will be a 10-minute recess. The board will recess for approximately 10 minutes or until disruption has ceased. When we return, we expect to continue the regular meeting without disruption.
Also, the propaganda is telling kids to quit eating meat. And they're not allowed to eat at fast food places. It's killing the planet. You guys are rock stars, let me tell you. Pure evil.
Go ahead and don't do it. We'd love to go to court.
One, two. Make sure there's not a quorum in the back.
the one right in there, integrity, they got me. That's the sad part. They have. I think that's Dave Nicholson. He's the one that wants to do the turn on. He's from Lynch. I think the other guy is too.
take notes if I don't have a pen.
We're returning from recess. I'll hand the meeting over to Superintendent Bush.
Thank you, President Tominski. So the consent agenda, we'll be moving on to the consent agenda in just a moment. There was a request that the board take a vote on an agenda item that is not on the published pre-approved agenda. We are not, under Iowa code, allowed to do that, so we will not be taking a vote on anything that's not on the pre-approved agenda. So there's been a request if we could have a future board meeting or following past practice, which is administrative recommendations around mask mitigation. The board is not allowed to discuss this at the board table because it's not on our pre-approved agenda. So the board will be advising me, leadership, of the next step, so which would be either a special board meeting for future consideration or an administrative recommendation. So we will, I will be glad to follow up with, if you don't mind, the key speaker tonight on the next path forward, as after board leadership gives me some direction. But I understand you all need to stay in compliance and cannot comment on this, and I can no longer comment on this, but I wanted the public to understand why we are not allowed to take a vote on this or have it as a discussion item this evening. So thank you for your advisement. Thank you for your feedback, and I will be glad to follow up with those who are here this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent Bush. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Are there any items that a board member would like to pull for a comment, question, or separate vote? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Is there a second? This is a roll call vote. Do the personnel report and BA 22-198 base wages for teachers. Turn the meeting over to you, Laurel.
Director Roundtree. Aye. Director Borcherding.
Aye.
Director Newman.
Aye.
Director Merschbach.
Aye.
Director Humbles.
Aye.
Director Garlock.
Aye.
President Tominski.
Aye. I'll now turn the meeting over to you, Superintendent Bush, who will provide us with an update regarding Truman Elementary School.
So this is a transition conversation about the repurposing of Truman. Just a few bullet notes, and Executive Director Christensen and Deputy Superintendent Quaker will be here to assist and support. Just some quick overviews. This communication has already gone out to our public, but we have not had the opportunity to have the board ask some questions, if you have questions, regarding Truman's transition to an early learning center. So just as an overview, this Truman next fall will be repurposed, and this children who currently attend Truman Elementary School will either be headed to Maple Grove or West Willow Elementary School. So the attendance center and the building itself, the question was, what might become of Truman? We have had a lot of conversations, not just in this immediate past, but also for years around the vision of preschooling and how we can provide more access as a school district to preschooling. As you know, preschool is not a fully funded program, and so we have to find other means to provide access or discounted rates for families who cannot afford preschool. And then we have families who pay tuition to have their children attend preschool. So our vision is that every child get access, but we also know that we need funding to do that. So we've used some opportunities with grants as well as ESSER dollars to expand it somewhat this year, but the idea will be that we have a future destination and space, not just using additional classrooms in our elementaries, but an opportunity to really identify an early learning center for Cedar Rapids. So this would be repurposing that particular building, but I'll hand it over to Deputy Superintendent and Executive Director Christensen for additional comments and vision around this early learning center opportunity. And there's bullet notes there on the screen for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the vision and the opportunity to create some of these full-day programs and expand. We piloted with 5 this year in addition to our half-day preschool that we have available within our system. But we'll be communicating and having some conversations with staff later this week. Have already been working on what staffing will look like and all the details of the short and long-term planning and communication plans that are going with it. But really excited for the focus on early childhood education and hopefully the expansion of serving more 4-year-olds and potentially 3-year-olds within our system. And Mr. Christensen's all good.
So really, we'd just open it to the board about maybe even detailed questions you might have for us and how we can answer any questions you might have as we move forward with this opportunity. We haven't really gotten all the nuts and bolts ironed out yet, but now that we have the vision for it, we're working on ironing out the nuts and bolts. Yes.
Janine?
Hey, I just have a question about, and I know that this is like the overview, right? Or just kind of planning and visioning at this point. Has there been some direct integration with workforce or some discussion for how this can benefit workforce, especially in Cedar Rapids?
Yeah, good question. I know we've been planning, Deputy Superintendent Koiker, we've been talking a lot about wraparound services too.
Mm-hmm.
So that we are supplying not just the time so that these parents or the folks that we serve, can go to work. The kids still get a quality education in the morning, before school, after school. So we are in discussion right now with a group that hopefully here in the near future we'll be bringing that information to the board.
Excellent. Thank you.
Director Newman?
First of all, this is really good news, and childcare is an issue I'm pretty passionate about. Are there any initial estimates on the number of children that will be serving there, both as early learning, but also with wraparound as well?
So at every grade level, we have 1,000+ students. So it would be ideal if we eventually got to be serving all of our 4-year-old students within our system or with our community partners within our system. Currently, we are not at that rate, but there's lots of barriers, as you brought up. We don't currently have everywhere wraparound instruction, transportation, some of those pieces. So we're really looking to remove the barriers that are in place and make sure we have equitable, accessible, early childhood education for all families that would like that opportunity, especially at the 4-year-old level, with, again, options for 3-year-olds also.
So you did say options for 3-year-olds too. That's a possibility?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe not at Truman. Well, actually, we've talked about, we're still exploring that. We have shared visions and different, opportunities there. But yes, we'll definitely have spots for 3-year-olds also in our system.
Other questions from the board? Exciting news. I mean, I was sharing, just my kids have been fortunate enough to take advantage of programs like AK, and just that early childhood education is so important. So I'm excited that we'll have this offering. And I assume the need for our outweighs what Truman will be able to do. But do you have any sort of forecast? Can you look into the future 5 years?
I would say when we build it, they usually come.
Right.
And so that's the hope. And also to have a means to have it funded. I think that as Director Garlock was talking about legislative priorities, the governor's workforce vision as well on how to support. She's made some great proclamations about childcare. I think we're definitely in alignment to that advocacy. And if there was a way to fund this, especially for 3- and 4-year-olds, we want to be able to provide that for every child in our community. Absolutely. If we can get the funding for that, would be fantastic.
Excellent. The next item on our agenda is a resolution, School Infrastructure Sales Services Use Tax Revenue Refunding Bond. Do we have a motion to approve the proposed resolution?
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? This is a roll call vote. I'll turn the meeting to you, Laurel.
Director Borcherding?
Aye.
Director Newman?
Aye.
Director Merschbrock?
Aye.
Director Humbles?
Aye.
Director Garlock?
Aye.
Director Roundtree?
Aye.
President Tomiski?
Aye. Up next, Deputy Superintendent Quaker, who will provide us with an update on the SRO program.
So good evening. We have some more exciting news, and I have a team that's here tonight to help present. So just want to make sure everybody knows Justin Blitz is a Director of Culture and Climate Transformation. Barb Hansen is a Culture and Climate Transformation Specialist. We have Lieutenant Corey McGarvey, and then we have SRO Officer Drew Tran, who currently is at Kennedy. So they're all going to be providing some assistance. This is a small portion of the team that's been really working on the data and updates and really collaboratively working together. Really proud of the team and all that we've accomplished in this short period of time. Not standing here saying we don't have additional improvements to make. You'll see that from some of our data, but we definitely have seen some growth over the last couple months. So tonight we're going to go through just a very high level some of those goals and outcomes, some of the changes we've implemented, some of the trainings our high school principals and our SROs have been a part of, an overview of data, and also what that collaboration has looked like for our team. So some of our goals, we want all students to feel safe and supported. We also want all staff and students to have that sense of belonging within our system. And then of course, we want everything through that restorative, trauma-informed lens. Today somebody asked me, do you really need to teach student behaviors? And I heard that as a comment earlier. Absolutely. Some kids don't have the opportunity at home to learn what it looks like for school expectations. So it's up to us to be able to teach them what those are and to train them and still have high expectations for behavior just like we do academically. So outcomes of success. So our goal is to have a 50% or greater reduction rate in arrests. You will see tonight that so far we're on track for that. We also want to reduce our disproportionality by 50% or greater. We have some more work to do on that. We are doing monthly reports and reviewing that data. So when we've had meetings, we get the data collected. CRPD along with the school system are trying to find ways to collect the important data pieces, have those conversations, and make sure all of our data aligns. So later on, Lieutenant McGarvey will talk about diversions, and there's formal and there's informal, and some of those pieces of just what data is really important for us to be looking at, and what is the easiest way to be able to pull those reports within our system and theirs. And then SRO's taking on shared leadership. They've been doing a lot of assistance with our Run, Hide, Fight curriculum. So when I say that, they've trained all of the staff within our buildings, and then our building staff train our students and go through those practice drills, which they assist with as well. And there's also lockdown drills that SROs are a part of, and multiple SROs will come and assist with buildings depending on the size. All right, restorative approach.
So, like Deputy Superintendent Quaker shared, we really want to make sure that the systems that we have in place are supporting a restorative approach. And so, recognizing that students are experiencing high levels of stress, knowing now what we know about trauma and brain development, we want to have a trauma-informed restorative approach to supporting student discipline. So all the changes that we've made here within the program are really rooted at shifting and prioritizing that restorative approach. So rather than having punitive discipline policies, we want to make sure that our discipline policies offer students the opportunity to experience reteaching the skills that might be missing, to have an opportunity to repair any relational harm that might have been done, and restore any harm that might have been caused. And so really all of these changes are really in support of that process.
So just a couple additional points to highlight. The soft uniforms. Lieutenant McGarvey will talk about this too, and Officer Drew Tran has on a rendition of a soft uniform. So it's taken us a long time with the pandemic to actually get the uniforms in and to get people to sew on all the necessary things. But the good news is when students come back from the holiday break, soft uniforms will be in place in our buildings by the SROs. In addition, we took out the 2 middle school SROs and we placed them as floaters. So those floaters really right now, we've had some additional needs at our high schools. So we have placed an additional SRO at Washington and Jefferson for the time being. We continue to have conversations and look at data for updates of when we need to utilize them elsewhere. In addition to that, we have also done a chart of if you are in need of an SRO in our system in an elementary or middle school, you still have access to them. And those calls go through the executive directors to myself, and then I reach out to Lieutenant McGarvey or Lieutenant Matt Welsh. And they send us one of those SROs, and it's typically one of those 2 floaters, of course, because we have additional SROs within those buildings. So far that's been working really well. When we have any additional needs in our system, they've been flexible, partnering with us, collaborating with us on, we'll do whatever you need to meet those needs that we have currently in place. So that's currently some of the changes that we've implemented in addition to what's been covered so far.
Good evening. So these four points up here are the trainings that all the SROs have went to. They are valuable trainings, and I was grateful for the opportunity to take a dive into the de-escalation CPI training. That stands for Crisis Prevention Intervention. We also did the Intercultural Development Continuum. The one that I took from the most was the trauma-informed care. This was very recent. It made me, a long time ago, I was young. And during that trauma-informed care, I took the opportunity to take an ACE test myself, and it was really high. It was an 8 out of 10. So I think what I did was I really honed in on this training, and I recognize, and my colleagues do too, from this training and just ongoing experience from working in the police world, that people are broken and hurting, and that we want to be able to help that. And in the school setting, there's a reason why kids are lashing out, and my role as the SRO at Kennedy is to be mindful of that and carry out my approach with all that in mind.
Okay, so we're going to dive into the data now, and we're going to start specifically with the high school students. So as you see, this is a chart that reflects the Black high school students specifically. When we looked at the data, we focused on 2018 and 2019 to compare, just because of the pandemic and the derecho in 2020. That was kind of an outlier of a year. So you will see that was excluded from the data. As you can see here, we've seen a steady decline in charges for our students every month. We use data from the first day of school of those 3 years, and it goes through November 30th of each year. So we're comparing the same period of time. For September in 2018, we had 14 Black high school students charged, 16 in 2019, and we were down to 4 in that period of time in 2021. In November, we went from 12 to 6 to 1. Next, we'll look at the charges for white high school students. And again, I just want to reiterate, this is just from that period of time from the first day of school through November 30th, and this is specifically to high school students. As you can see here, we've also seen a sharp decline in arrests or charges of students. In November, the most recent month, in 2018, we had 20 high school white students that received charges, down to 4 in 2021 during that same period in November. So when we're looking at the high school data, comparing August through November from 2018 to that same period of time in 2021, there's been an 88.4% reduction in charges for white high school students and a 78.7% reduction in charges of Black high school students. Next, we're going to look at the K-8 data. So this is broken down a little bit differently just because of how data has been tracked based on where SROs were assigned. So we can look at historical data for McKinley and Roosevelt, and as you can see here, in 2018 we had 15 students that were charged in that year. In 2019 there were 8, and in 2021 in those 2 schools, 1 child has received charges during this period of time. Additionally, during this period of time this year, not reflected in this graph, we did have 3 additional arrests in K through 8. And I just wanted to point them out for your information. At Franklin, we had 2. One was a white student and one was a black student. And at Wilson, we also had 1 arrest, and that was of a black student.
Good evening. Again, my name is Lieutenant McGarvey. I don't know if you remember me from July, but I was at the podium in July, and we talked a little bit about diversion when I gave that presentation back then. If you remember, we started our diversions here at CRPD in around 2006, 2007, kind of on the cutting edge of diversions. And the only charge we used to do in those early years was the disorderly conduct charges. And then August of 2019 comes along, and we see that some of the cutting edge police departments, which we like to say we are as well, but we're starting to see some of the programs they're implementing, and they are greatly expanding their diversionary programs. So we start looking at that in August of 19. December 11th of 2019, we do a stakeholder meeting. Cedar Rapids schools are a part of that, Juvenile Court Services, and PD. We kind of morph into a plan. Unfortunately, the pandemic hits. We get this rolled out finally in late 2020, essentially. So we've greatly expanded the diversion program. There's probably 10 to 11 different charges that we'll use now, and I think you guys remember some of those. The possession of tobaccos under the legal age, the possession of alcohol, the curfew, the minor thefts, some of those things. In the last 4 years, 2017 through 2020, we had 40 diversions total over 4 years. This year, we're at 19 through the end of November. I can tell you we're already up to 21 or 22, midway through December. I'm thinking you guys were tracking to do probably 40 diversions or more for the school year on our current trajectory. And those are formalized diversions. They are official police case numbers. They're official police reports. I'll talk a little bit about what some of the SROs are doing for informal diversions in just a minute, but on track to do 40. So I think we're looking at about a 400% increase, but time will tell. I'd like to come back in May and update you again. The diversions can be very simple. It can be the SRO assigns the student to write a 250 to 500 word essay. They also can be a little bit more elaborate, like we dig deeper into why the student is acting out. And we may ask the school district for some resources to get a student assigned some counseling. And one of our diversions was a student and parents, they agreed to do 3 counseling appointments, and then they would have completed their diversionary assignments. So it can be very broad. It can be very simple, and it can be a little bit more complex. And it just depends on how the SRO and the administrator feel about this particular student. SROs are doing these informal diversions where they're not actually making a police report. They may just be calling parents in and having a meeting with the student, parents, and the SRO and the administrator from the school, and just talking about whatever event occurred. And so we're doing lots of those, dozens of those dozens of those a month. And we're noting those on our stat sheets, which we're turning over to Deputy Superintendent Quaker as well. I will say this, I'm extremely pleased with our results so far. Our partnership is strong. I do believe the behavior in schools hasn't changed much. It seems to be on track with a normal school year, but our collaborative response together is changing how we're addressing those events. We're changing how we're responding to those events. Does that make sense? Just a little different topic here. We're changing some of our terminology. We're moving away from the word arrest just a little bit, and we're moving towards charges. we found that when we talk with school staff, that some of the lingo that we use in law enforcement, it's confusing. So we're going to clear that up and just go with the word charges. So our program, we used to say a pre-arrest diversion program. Well, it's really going to be a pre-charge diversion. And charges is a more accurate term. A charge can be a ticket for possession of tobacco. A charge could be you were charged with disorderly conduct and just given a court date. And then a charge can also be you were arrested, put in handcuffs, placed into a squad car and taken home or taken to the station. But the word arrest, when we say arrest, everybody that I know in the non-law enforcement world thinks of a student was handcuffed, put into a car, and taken away. That's just simply not true. We've probably arrested in handcuffs in a police car 3 students this year. It's definitely 5 or less. But we have charged, you saw the stats, many more than that. And some of those have been for vaping, disorderly conduct, simple assaults, things like that. So you're going to see us start using the word charge in lieu of arrest, just for clarity's sake from now on. That's it.
So Lieutenant McGarvey touched on charges and the language shift to being just that. I have some specific examples of my work. Prior to Kennedy, I was assigned to Jefferson, and very much of what I do is relationship building with these students. In fact, they begged me not to go. Jefferson kids begged me. There was a specific incident this year at my current school, Kennedy, where 2 students were at odds at one another, and several adults responded to try to separate this very volatile physical situation. Nothing was stopping these young men from going after each other. I quickly rush to the situation. Unfortunately, I took the brunt of the swings thrown, and the only thing that stopped the young men going after each other was the relationship I developed. They visibly saw that I was the one that had the hurt, if you will. Immediately started crying that it was me. We took a walk outside, talked through why this happened and did it really need to. That was a diversion. I took the time to sit down and talk to him and diverted that incident. It did not have to go, and it very well could have been handcuffs and to the ground and different techniques, but it didn't come to that. It was because of the relationship I had. I touched on my ACE test, but my life experience, English wasn't my first language. People are shocked to know that when I tell them that. Adults that took the time to actually know my barriers really shifted my chances in life. I would say about most of the adults just wanted to say, oh, he was just troubled, a statistic waiting to happen. but the very few adults that took the time to figure out the post-trauma or whatever I went through is the reason that I'm here. And that's the reason why I'm at the school. I am being who I needed as a young man. Lastly, I just want to thank you and close with the whole SRO thing has been polarizing viewpoints. And you haven't seen a lot of SROs up here to talk about this. I think you've heard different perspectives, but my colleagues and I are truly in this to be the person that we needed when we were younger, me in particular. I promise that, and this is a factual statement, during this school year, no student has left Kennedy in handcuffs. Thank you.
So a few more things is we've had collaboration with high school principals, SROs, CRCSD, and CRPD. These are the dates. So basically once a month, we're looking at those data pieces, really digging in, trying to figure out what are ways that we can continue to have restorative conversations with students, what are ways also we can change behaviors of students.
So for me, this has been the most powerful piece, having the opportunity to really connect and collaborate with our CRCSD team and the SROs and their team and the building administrators. We know time's always a barrier, but having those opportunities to come together, look at data, reflect on scenarios, learn how we're handling situations in different schools, it's been a really powerful opportunity, and I think we're reaping the benefits from those opportunities to collaborate and connect. So as a team, some things that we've done when we come together in those weekly or monthly meetings is we're looking at data. We've identified a kind of some consistency and clarity around when to involve law enforcement. So what's school-related discipline and what's more on the police side of things. We've really just built relationships and connected with each other. That's been incredibly powerful, really aligning on our values. And then we've created and implemented a way for K-8 schools to access CRPD if necessary. And so this just kind of exemplifies what that process looks like. So if there is a non-emergency need for law enforcement at a K-8 building, that administrator could reach out to Deputy Superintendent Quaker. If she's unavailable, they'd reach out to their level director, and Deputy Superintendent Quaker would then reach out to Lieutenant McGarvey and be able to dispatch one of our floating officers to get the buildings the support they need in non-emergency situations.
Okay, lastly, just some next steps. So we're continuing, of course, to work on the data. We are really excited, say the word charges, that we have reduced the amount of charges we're doing within our system and that we're focused on those restorative practices. One thing we're going to be working on is really, are we changing student behaviors and what are those things that we need to do and have in place, and do that deep data dive into our own student discipline. What are we doing within school suspensions, out of school suspensions, some of those things within our system. So we will continue to meet as a team and have those monthly conversations and also strengthen that data collection and streamline that to make sure we're looking at all the data pieces we need to be looking at to guide our next steps within the system. So questions from you as a board?
First, thanks to each of the presenters. I absolutely appreciate it on behalf of this board. I know that we spent a lot of time this summer talking about this subject, and it seems clear that all sides of this partnership are happy with the results and some positive changes. So I'll defer to my board members to see if there's any questions. Director Newman?
Also, I'd like to echo the thanks for presenting tonight. Good and powerful stories, and I appreciate it very much. Second of all, would it be possible, or let me start with, how do we think our building administration is feeling about this year? And would it be possible in future reporting to have them come and talk about it as well? Is anything, do they feel like things are changing for them?
So we have had great collaborative meetings talking through this process, and there's hurt, right? Because there was lots of polarizing conversations that happened. I believe that we've restored relationships and we're having good collaborative conversations that are real and transparent around data. That will also say, I think everybody understands we want to be restorative with how we are responding to students that misbehave whenever that's possible, and what are the ways that we can provide students with mental health counseling or different supports that they need based on what that behavior is they've done. They will also still tell you we have challenging behaviors within our buildings of a small population of students. So the next part we just had in our last meeting last week, we really need to dig into and continue to look at our data. What can we do proactively to try to change some of those student behaviors so we do not have to respond to them? And one way, based on my role, I'm going to say, is that quality instruction happening in the classroom the entire time helps kids be engaged as well. And that's hard, but I think the more things that we can do and the more we can discuss and give people in our buildings the tools that they need to really make sure that instructional piece is engaging, and then how can we proactively work with students to try to turn off those behaviors and form those relationships. Even within our group, strong relationships, right, build those strong partnerships and the ability to have those really challenging, hard conversations and look at the data. And our disproportionality, as you saw, we've reduced the charges / what we used to call arrest, but disproportionality is still a concern that we have to figure out. And we have had those conversations in our problem solving. We're going to do everything we can to continue to work on that issue.
If possible, it would be really great at the next opportunity we have for reporting out on this to hear from building administration at the middle and high school levels.
Appreciate that. We will do that.
Other questions from the board? Director Borcherding?
I just have a quick question. I applaud both groups for the collaborative effort moving forward. It looks like you guys are really working together well and putting students first. My question is, I'm hearing a lot about what's happened with staff and what's happened with police officers. Has there been any education with students on how to appropriately interact with police officers, how to kind of navigate that relationship?
So that is one thing that we've been working on. We had plans for it this month. There's various entities that are willing to assist us, so we're hoping to roll that out in January, and we can give you an update when we have that in place. But it's definitely something we've been working on plans for and we'll have still within the school year.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? I just have one. Officer Tran, when you spoke of the training, I assume that's the NASRO training that you went through and the principals and the SROs did. Sounds like it was tremendously impactful for you, and I'm just kind of curious, have all SROs and all principals gone through that training? Can you speak to that? And maybe a follow-up question is, should we be expanding that type of training to others?
I think it's always important to grow, and the collaborative trainings provided by the school district were these 3-4. And yes, I did go to a NASRO school, and all of our SROs have attended at least the basic NASRO training.
Yeah, great. So, as far as principals, have just the principals that have SROs gone through this training? And is there...
I'm going to defer to...
Yeah, thank you.
Great questions. So if our administrators in our high schools, now when I talk administrators, they couldn't all three leave their building for a full day, because we're talking some full days in here training. But the goal was to partner and learn and grow together. So the Intercultural Development Continuum is something we've done in our entire system. So that was one opportunity that our principals have already done within our system. So SROs did that separately. But the other ones we've had together, and yes, principals have had some of those opportunities, but this year, we set this up explicitly for our high school principals and our SROs to really work together and talk through some of these data points aligned to the audit. But I think you make a really good point. So this last training on trauma-informed care, which I've gone through as well, is an absolutely fabulous training. And Tanager Place assisted us with that and just did a fabulous job. And I've gotten so much great feedback from people that took that training. That's something we should look at, making sure everybody has an opportunity within our system to participate in.
Yeah, appreciate that. I see no further questions. Again, thank you so much for sharing and looking forward to the next update. It definitely seems like everything's heading in the right direction, so I appreciate that. Before we adjourn, we have a motion for a closed session to discuss the evaluation of the professional competency of an individual whose performance is being considered. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there any discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Director Newman. Director Sprach.
Aye.
Director Humbles. Director Garlock. Director Roundtree. Director Borcherding.
Aye.
President Tominski.
With no further business, we stand adjourned. Thank you.